Okay. We
Okay.
are live on Facebook.
Hello. Hi, Steve. I'm so pleased you're going to be able to join us in
Yeah.
a little while.
He will be-
Hello, all my TeaFlix Tuesday warriors. We've got a great guest for you to talk to today. Some fabulous, interesting stuff. And we're above ground, thank God.
Yeah.
Hope you all are well.
And the ground ain't shaking, so that's good. That's news.
Something. Yeah.
Absolutely. So today, a colleague of ours in the tech PR advertising agency business, Steve Schuster, is going to join us shortly from the East Coast. And he's a fabulous guitar player, wrote one of my favorite songs ever called People Inside of Pictures. You really have to hear it. The lyrics are stunning and award-winning too. And Steve is involved, even though he's on the East Coast, he's flying out here shortly to the Broad Stage in Santa Monica to do a wonderful charity event. But first, I'm going to bring him on and learn a little about our guest today, Steve Schuster, and the crowd goes wild.
Hello. Morning.
Hi,
Oh, good afternoon. Hi. Thank you so much for carving out the time to talk to us. I know what a busy lad you are.
Thank you for the honor of joining you today. I really appreciate it.
That's absolutely our pleasure. I love the way you'll see Steve getting his walk in as well.
Yeah. See,
while we're just sitting getting our non-alcoholic drinks on.
Yeah, I see. I almost wore a salmon-colored shirt today, so I'm glad I didn't because it looked far overly coordinated.
Indeed.
That's telepathy for you.
So, Steve, tell the folks a little bit about your musical journey when you started, singing, songwriting, and sort of influences and what got you into it, the whole thing.
Oh, gosh. And we've talked about this before, Ruth. I started getting into music back in the 1970s when my father brought home a couple of Beatles albums, the famous Red compilation and the Blue compilation, and it was just all over for me then. I listened to those and I immediately pulled a dusty old guitar out of the closet that had sat there for many years unused, following the 2 or 3 lessons that my parents tried to give me when I was about 8 years old.
Yeah. And
I started learning Beatles songs. And when I was done, I decided, well, what's done is to write songs. So I started writing, some pretty bad songs back then, but I've been doing it for decades. And it turned into a sideline as a recording artist. As you so kindly pointed out, I've got several albums out, and just continue as a sideline to record original classic rock style music.
And your current release is called Unassembled Man, right?
Yes, Unassembled Man came out in June of 2020. It was put out on June 25th, which was my 60th birthday and Global Beatles Day. Which is a great combination of days. I'm really sort of kismet that Global Beatles Day is also my birthday every year. But that's the album that came out, and as you pointed out so kindly, that does contain the song "People Inside of Pictures," which won a lyric contest, won recognition from American Songwriter magazine. And for a singer-songwriter, we're all about storytelling. So the fact that the lyrics were pointed to is in this way was really a big honor.
I still think that, wearing our ad agency hats, that you should definitely try to get that to, I don't know, a Kodak or even a camera phone company, an iPhone or, a Samsung or maybe even a BlackBerry from back in the day. And because they all take pictures now, people inside. So the lyrics, kids, are the best part about it is the way it frames the whole thing. It's people inside of pictures, pictures inside of frames. So immediately you're in your aunt or uncle's or grandmother's living room and you're looking at your family. It puts me in mind of my favorite Beatles song, which is In My Life, because when you hear it, you start to create your own music video in your head, and it'll never be be for any two people. So that's why I think it's so brilliant.
Yeah. That was the goal of the song. It was really to tell the story. The origin of the song was my parents' living room, which was filled. All the walls were just filled with these big frame pictures of all the generations of my family, going back to Russia in the 1800s. But then all the immigrants that came over and built these families, and you had them in front of their push carts, and then the businesses that they built, and eventually in their fine suits as they became doctors and lawyers and professionals. And it was just sort of this as I say in the song, this constellation that surrounded me growing up and gave me this beautiful understanding of where I came from, which, I hope that our kids and grandkids do today. But that's what the song tries to convey. So I'm delighted that it did that for you.
Yeah, well, of course, when I hear the lyric, I see our family. I think it's just a very nostalgic thing to bring back. Where are your folks from originally?
Originally from Russia and Lithuania and Ukraine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, most of them came over in the late 1800s in one of the big immigrant waves. And then the last one was my grandfather, Boris Schuster, who came over in 1917 at the age of 7.
Oh, wow. To escape the revolution, probably.
That time to escape the revolution, and the previous generation was to escape the pogroms. And it was funny. It was a typical first generation. Both my grandfather's parents gave them a choice of either to be a doctor or a lawyer, and so I had one of each.
Oh, that's handy. That can come in handy at various times, can it not?
Sure.
Indeed.
So one of the things we're going to tell the folks about today, and especially our West Coast buddies, is this wonderful upcoming event on October 30th at the Edie, which is the 129-seater stage at the Broad at Santa Monica College. So the headliner for that is also another storyteller, Doug Macleod, or Macleod. I don't know how he pronounces it correctly. There's so many ways to get that wrong.
I believe it's Macleod.
How did you and he come to be on this bill together? Because he's got quite a story. He's in his mid-70s now. But he's really known not just for blues, but also for storytelling, right?
He is, and he was introduced to, or I was introduced to him rather, by Renato Giordano, who's the man who's putting on the whole concert through his company Rock and Blues, and rockandblue.net is his company, which I can talk about in a minute. But he introduced me to Doug. He and Doug go back probably 3 or 4 decades, quite a long time when we were all younger people. Doug is indeed a fantastic storyteller. If you read about him, he's the real deal. He's got a Wikipedia page and all. And he is described as a storyteller in the blues tradition. He's originally from St. Louis. He's now in Memphis, so he's really in that, sort of Mississippi Delta blues tradition. He's won 6 blues music awards, 4 times as Acoustic Artist of the Year, a couple times Album of the Year. He's even got a Golden Globe for his album, You Can't Take My Blues, and plenty of material on YouTube. You can see his live performances, and the guy is just captivating, both as a musician and as a storyteller. And he says that he became a storyteller in the early days when he didn't have as many. He only performs his own material, and so in the early days when he didn't have as much material, he kind of filled in the gaps with a lot of patter and storytelling.
Very cool. And how did you two come to be on this bill?
Renato invited him as a close friend, and then Renato and I go back to a chance encounter at the Consumer Electronics Show in 2001. Actually. But
are there really any chance encounters, or
well, that's the question.
Yeah.
Does the universe have it all planned out, and we just sit there waiting for the information?
You have to wonder. It feels very fated. I was walking around CES. I don't know if you've been to CES, but it's an incredibly crowded show, and you can just easily get lost even if you're there for the 3 or 4 days of the show. I was wandering around, and one of the things you don't often see, because you have to go to NAMM for the NAMM show, is guitars. And suddenly I came upon a booth, and there were guitars hanging there, and I said, "Well, I've got to find out what's going on here." And I ended up talking to Renato, and he, it turns out, is one of the fathers of GPS technology. So, thanks to him, we can find our way around these days. And he took that technology as a virtuoso guitarist himself to answer the frustration that a lot of Stratocaster guitarists have. And that's that you can't typically have the vintage sound of the late 50s, early 60s Stratocasters without noise, without the 60 cycle, or in the UK 50 cycle hum that just permeates the guitar and is picked up by the pickups. He figured out with his engineering brilliance how to have both, and so that's what the origin is of his technology and of Rock and Blue, which is the company he's got now, and he sells these loaded pick guards that people can put in Strat style guitars. He'll actually be raffling off some 4 guitars at the event, as well as selling multiple pick guards with special artwork that's created by the residents of the charity that we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
And all the net profits will go to the charity.
That's fantastic.
Super.
I actually, a friend of ours, Steve Kaman, his father, Mr. Kaman, I don't remember his first name, started Zildjian and also invented the Ovation guitar. And when I was asking him about, well, why does it have, a round back on the Ovation, he said, well, if you think about how sound is projected, it's much better in a round space like a cathedral or a church or anything with a dome. So he said, I thought, well, how stupid is it that guitars have flat backs to try and project the sound through? And I said, well, that's great, but what's, the black sort of plastic cover? He said, oh, that's to stop the sound escaping out of the back, because he was also, Kaman Industries was also involved in helicopter.
Yeah.
They made the blades for the Sikorsky helicopters, and to cut the sound of the blade chopping through the air, they came up with this black coating for helicopter things. So he said, I just applied the same principle, the sound damping on the back of the Ovation guitar, gave it a round back, and it took off. So there's so many interesting stories, like the Fishman pickup people too, that there's real technology behind this stuff,
Yeah.
There really is. It's funny you should bring it up. My very first guitar was an Ovation guitar.
Oh, really?
It's the 1970, my first real guitar that I saved up from babysitting and grass mowing money to buy was the 1976 bicentennial edition. They only made I think they made 1976 of them, actually. It's got a little logo on the front and everything. I still got the guitar to this day. And it was that parabolic projection of the guitar that was so important. At the time, I was acting as a song leader at summer camp, so I needed a guitar to be able to project that to audiences, because we were unamplified. And not only that, it could take a beating. I could just sit it down next to a campfire and not worry about it getting scratched. But brilliant. And I didn't know that many years later I would have that juxtaposition of engineering and music come together again in so many ways.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I once had before he passed away, I had the honor of meeting Jim Marshall, the inventor of the Marshall amp.
Oh, sure.
And he was in a wheelchair, and it was a big noisy, it was the NAMM show actually. And I was squatting down talking to him. And I said, gosh, without Marshall, rock and roll just wouldn't be the same, I said, so what's been your guiding principle all these years? And he just winked and said, 11. So which came first, Jim Marshall or Spinal Tap, right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So back to the wonderful event that we're going to let everybody know about. So it is on October 30th at 7:30 in Santa Monica.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful little intimate space, is it not, the Edie?
I have not visited there myself, but it sure looks that way from the pictures and from Renato's description of it. It'll hold 129 people, so it's a pretty limited supply of tickets.
Yep.
129 including the artists, so you can subtract at least two of us and our respective wives. So now we're down to 125.
And the crew.
And the crew, it will be live streamed as well on Launch Global. Just a fantastic business that was started actually at the beginning of the pandemic. I was lucky enough to be one of the first artists to perform on Launch Global in about March or April of 2020, and they've just exploded, as you might imagine, during the pandemic. And so they'll be streaming it live, and it'll be available on pay-per-view there as well.
That's
excellent.
Great. Wonderful.
Excellent. Well, I'm only sorry we won't be able to be there, because finally you'll be in our neck of the woods, but we'll be ships that pass in the night, unfortunately. Yes. Yeah. But I did take the liberty of putting a ticket link. I made a bit.ly shortened link, so if there's anybody catches this either now or later, because we'll obviously stream it later on, the ticket link is in the bottom. Tell me more about the beneficiary of this, these Somerset Homes. It's wonderful work they do.
Amazing.
It really is wonderful work. Somerset Homes is a residential facility for adults with developmental disabilities. And they've got 3 facilities in Orange County, 2 in Bueno Park and 1 in Fullerton. They're all licensed by the state of California under the Department of Developmental Services. And so Somerset is run by what's called the Regional Center of Orange County, or RCOC, and their services are funded by the state of California. and it's just wonderful. They serve more than 22,000 Orange County residents that are in need of these kind of services. They're one of 21 private nonprofit organizations that are contracted by the state to coordinate these lifelong services and support for people with developmental disabilities. So it's really an important organization, and the Somerset Homes themselves have been around 18 years. I believe the RCOC has been around more than 40 years. There was some kind of state act that caused the creation of that. They are staffed with these incredibly well-trained and compassionate professionals who, as caregivers, they provide 24-hour non-medical care, along with life improvement activities and tools for these adults over the age of 18 who just can't provide for their own daily needs. So those can include like physical learning disabilities, language disabilities, behavior disabilities, things like autism and brain injury, Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome, those kinds of disabilities.
That's wonderful, because it must be such a burden for a family when we have a friend in Hamburg in Germany and his daughter is severely autistic, and you know, when she's awake, she's screaming and banging her fists, and she's you know, that way. And they tried for the first 3 years of her life to deal with it at home between the two parents. And they just, you know, broke their heart to have to go and get professional help. But she's so much better now. And she's really, you know, even with the best will in the world, if you're a caregiver and a parent, you may think you're doing the best thing and the right thing and from love for somebody who has, you know, developmental issues. But when you're surrounded by professionals in a safe space, gosh, anything can happen. That story you were telling me about the young lady who was nonverbal is amazing.
Yeah, this was an amazing story and it's just one of you know, so many thousands of stories. This young woman whose parents also worked so hard with her, really up until the age of 18, when she was eligible for Somerset Homes. They, you know, with heavy hearts, they placed her in Somerset Home, and at the time she was completely nonverbal, and she just couldn't express herself at all, and that inability to express herself led to a lot of frustration, of course, on her part, and some pretty extreme behaviors. And over just a few years, with the properly trained professionals caring for her, in addition to ongoing support from her family and the RCOC, today she's this sweet and docile and you know, clearly intelligent, fine young woman she can write her own name, she can express herself, and she can assist in light chores around Somerset, and can engage in dialogue, answering simple questions. And the really great part is, and this is kind of where the funds are going, is in addition to this basic level of care, is we're looking to support more enhanced recreational facilities that she's come to use, that have become a really crucial part of her life. She exercises, she swims daily, and she has access to musical instruments, which, you know, who knew? But she's an incredible drummer. She can sit down behind a kit and play along with some very complicated work. But that is where she really, really lights up, and that just wouldn't happen without this organization.
It is amazing that the part that music plays within the brain, even with dementia and Alzheimer's. Do you remember we went to that Gary Lamel event with Steve Tyrell, Music Men's Minds, and there were people who could no longer remember or, you know, function, quote, normally on a day-to-day basis. But boy, if you put a song in front of them from the 1950s or 60s that they knew as a kid, it came right. Glenn Campbell, that fantastic documentary, I'll Be Me. The power of music, and it just breaks my heart when they pull and stop teaching it in schools, and I think it's part of a mathematical brain exercise, to be honest. You know, one of our Sapphire's asking, do you have a personal connection to this charity, or it's just the happenstance of the organizer knowing both of you guys?
The organizer knows both of us, and he has a personal connection. So that's where this all was built around.
Yeah, Efrat is one of our regulars, and he's in Israel, and he's saying, tell me about it. He has a son with some issues, and it's just so very, very difficult to care for your loved one. You want the best for them, but in some cases it's just absolutely exhausting. And Mark Lindsay, who's also a friend and a regular. He's like, your perception and perspective as a parent is very difficult because you are the parent.
Exactly.
You don't necessarily see it, the quote, the right way.
Yeah, as a parent, you want to fix any problem that comes along, whether it's physical health or mental health, behavioral health. It's all part and parcel of that thing that you do as a parent. You take your heart and you hand it to somebody else.
Yeah, right. And Sapphire's saying she's mostly deaf, but music's been just a phenomenal thing for her. Even if it's just just the rhythm of the music, and I wonder why with this young lady, oftentimes in these kind of situations, you will see that people like that excel with percussive instruments.
Yes.
Drums, bongos, whatever.
Yeah, because you can feel it.
Yeah, it is sort of an
maybe
inner.
It equates to the heartbeat or something.
Something. It's sort of an inner rhythm for them. And Mark actually has an interesting business in Houston, Texas, on the west side. It's called The Glazery, and he has a lot of autistic children's classes come through, and he has unglazed pottery, and they'll paint it and create and throw it and glaze it and go home with something that they've made. And he's just saying he can see the effect that art has on these kind of children all the time. So I think it's just absolutely wonderful. Yeah. What will the program consist of?
It will basically be the Doug is the headlining performer, so he'll take up the lion's share of the evening. I'll be the opening act, which is quite an honor for me to open up for a man of musician of Doug's stature. There will be some presentations of the technology that Renato has created with Rock and Blue, which will be quite fun for anybody who's a Strat player who has been frustrated about the same things that caused this technology to be invented. There will be 4 guitars that will be raffled off. There will be Strat style guitars equipped with this noise canceling. Oh, I shouldn't call it noise canceling because Renato will correct me in terms of the technology, but this noise elimination technology. And there'll be merch on sale outside, all of which the profits of which will go to Somerset Homes. This will include, I think it's about 50 of these pick guards. As I said, they're equipped with electronics that eliminate the noise, but they're also printed with original art. So there's art. It's art that's been created just for this event. 3 different styles, all of which have been created by residents of Somerset Homes.
How wonderful!
What a wonderful! I'm just so sorry to be missing it, but hopefully if this one goes up big, there'll be one next year, and it's only a hop, skip, and a jump for us. If I was here, I'd be there with bells on. So
I imagine it's practically walking distance.
Well, for you, maybe.
Maybe you, not me, definitely.
Every meeting I've ever had with Steve, he's walking on his. He's such a good boy.
Great idea.
Would you chuck a mile or 2 on there for me?
Absolutely. This is a charity event.
That's right.
Yes,
and also, so tell the folks a little bit about Rainier Co., about your company and what the other part of your world is.
Sure. I like to think of this now as my second job, but it's the one that I spent the most time doing. It's a company that I opened up in 1993. I also have a background like Renato as an engineer, and then moved over into technology marketing. And so I created this agency basically to tell the stories of human invention. As with a lot of entrepreneurial enterprises, this was created out of a necessity that I saw in the market. Lots and lots and lots of great innovation and engineering going on. A little bit less good marketing, less good storytelling. So it really, it's consistent. Both my career passions, my recording artist work and my daily work, it's all about storytelling. And, as a storyteller, people have been telling stories since they were sitting around campfires, and maybe even before campfires were invented, telling stories, drawing pictures on walls. We know from the discovery of musical instruments, people were creating music and singing songs as long as humanity has been around. So we're just carrying on a tradition, whether it's about blues singer-songwriter kind of material, or telling the story of, the latest in computer storage or artificial intelligence, or cultured meat, or whatever it might be. We're just telling stories. So that's what I get the privilege of doing every day with my great team.
That's
Wonderful.
fantastic. Yeah, we do something not dissimilar. We're more on the sort of the actual building it and getting it out there, website building and social media, but without great content and without these stories and without very simple headlines and explanation, nobody spends very long on a brochure or a website or a LinkedIn page if it's all just tech speak and gobbledygook. So I think that, the storytellers, the people who've gone down in history as the greatest names from, Shakespeare to A.A. Milne, they've basically taken these universal themes and complicated emotions, and they've simplified them for the rest of the world to be able to really identify. I think it's about helping the customer identify with the passion behind the product, right? The product at the end is just the product. It is what it is. But making that connection between your audience, your potential customer, and where the inventor or the company is coming from, I think that's what's missing in a lot of marketing these days that I see.
I agree, and neuroscience has documented it really well, that it's that emotional connection. People don't make decisions based on facts and figures; they make them based on emotion. So it's incumbent upon us, whether again it's writing a song or it's creating a website, to connect it with that emotional intelligence of the audience.
Right, and I think there's so many, and it's a good thing that the younger generation, the Gen Zs and the millennials or whatever, are now sort of demanding that emerging brands have some kind of give back, some sustainability, some nonprofit. It's not just the old robber barons of the Carnegies and the old steel and cutthroat days. I think now with things like Tom's shoes and Bombas socks and all of these brands, they that's part of their original planning. Okay, how much are we going to carve away to give back? And I think that's just going to make the world a better place.
Yeah, I agree. And even it's gone from nonprofits being the main driver of things like sustainability and animal welfare to really, it's entering enterprise. It's becoming both profitable. You can do well and do good at the same time. You look at companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods, really changing the world and doing quite well on Wall Street as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I owe Efrat in Israel. The profile picture is a man, and I always thought Efrat was a man's name. Apparently, Efrat is very clearly female, so I do apologize, my darling.
Shalom, Efrat.
Shalom, exactly. But, well, this has been joyous. I know you've got another meeting coming up in 3 minutes at the top of the hour because you're a busy, busy man.
Yes.
But, thank you so much for checking the time together to do this. And
it's been such a pleasure to talk with you today.
Absolutely. And we will we'll post this obviously on all of our Facebook pages, but take a note of the ticketing link at the bottom there. It's I made a bit.ly link and it will be coming up shortly. It is bit.ly /Somerset benefit. And those are where the tickets
Thank you for that.
That'll take you to
pleasure.
Eventbrite. And if you're in Santa Monica, come on by. And if not, then I'll also be sharing Steve's stuff for the streaming about a week later than the show. We'll get that out there and hopefully sell some more tickets to that for this wonderful, wonderful cause.
Great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.
God bless.
All right, my darling.
Thank
God
you so
bless.
much.
And we'll
Bye
talk
now.
to you all soon.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.